Hey buyers, you getting tired of the same old tips you're seeing in these buyer guides? Well, here are the top 3 things that you really should be paying attention to make sure you get the right house. I've worked with a lot of buyers, and buyers always have a lot of questions, which is absolutely totally normal. I mean, if you think about what the buying process is, it can get kind of nervousing. I mean, you're like, hey, here's $250,000. Oh wait, I don't have $250,000. I got to go get it from some other guy. But if I give this to you, will you give me a house? And will the house actually work? A lot of buyer's guide covers things like pre-approval and how to make an offer and things like that, which that is all absolutely helpful. But here I have 3 things that aren't really talked about enough, but they definitely should be, because they're one of the 3 things that almost guarantee you can find a house that you love. The number one thing is, make sure you ask all the questions that you have. You have an agent, you have a lender, you have a home inspector, there's a title company, there's all these people involved in the transaction. Their job is to make sure that you understand what you're doing so you can make good choices about your house. I know it's kind of a cheesy line, but I actually say it to my clients all the time. And that line is, there are no stupid questions. Ask everything you need to ask to make sure that you know what's going on. I'm not going to be like, boy, what a dumb question, you moron. Haven't you bought and sold $20 million worth of real estate in the past 10 years? How could you possibly ask such a goofy question? Of course I wouldn't do that. Why would I? You came to me as a professional, obviously because you don't know exactly what you're doing. My job is to use my experience, whether it's with negotiating or pricing or anything else, to help you make the best decision. It's literally my job. And there's certainly no assumption that you should already know things because you read it online or because you talked to your dad or because you watched it in a movie one time. You know, you're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars and giving it to people in the hopes that you will end up with what you want. Your professional's job is to make sure you end up with what you want, and the best way to do that is by asking questions. If you find yourself in a situation where you're asking the questions that you need answers to and they are not being answered, either you're being ignored or they're kind of explaining it but not really, make sure you ask the follow-up questions until you understand what it is. And if they're not interested in helping you either initially or with follow-up questions, no matter how many you have, you need to find somebody else. Get those answers to those questions, and absolutely, I promise, do not be embarrassed to ask any questions you have. I promise you're not going to look dumb. The second one we have is completely understandable, but it is an emotional reaction, and that is being impatient and then you don't end up with the house that you want. Obviously, there's situations where this doesn't apply. You have people with job changes or maybe family situations or something like that. In that case, being impatient isn't really part of it. It's just that you got to get things going. What I'm talking about is more, buyers who are just super, super positive, crazy excited to get a new house, and they kind of overlook some of the long-term things that come along with it. The number one long-term thing that I always see is that, they overbuy. They end up being house poor, which means that, they found a perfect house, but the payment isn't perfect, and now you don't get to go on vacations for the next 20 years till it's paid off. That is not a situation you want to be in. If you are impatient, you're going to end up probably spending too much money, and again, 20, 30 years, it's not going to be a great look for you. The second big part of this one is that people end up with a house, that they don't really like. Whether it's a problem with the location, whether it's a problem with the layout, whether it's, too big, too small, too something for them. Again, it's super exciting to buy a house. I totally get it. When I bought my house, I was like, sure, I could totally fix this up. It'll be great. 5 years later, I haven't really been able to finish all the things that I wanted because I was so excited about the house and its potential. I, glossed over the fact that it's going to cost, tens of thousands of dollars and all of my time to get it fixed up. But I love my house, but it's not maybe the best house that I could have bought. I should have been more patient. Location is obviously the big one. You have where your house is going to be, you have where you work, you have shopping and restaurants, where your mom lives, all these different variables that come into it. And people can often, underestimate the amount of time everything takes to get somewhere. The way around this one is to actually do the driving, look at maps, do the whole thing. Go to the house maybe on the weekend, maybe not pull in the driveway, it's a little weird, but start from the house, Drive to your work. See how long it takes. Which roads are you taking? Think about if it's rush hour, is it going to be a traffic jam? Are there back roads around it? Okay, so let's say it's, 9 o'clock at night and somebody needs Band-Aids. How long can you make it to the Walgreens before it closes? Those kinds of decisions, they're kind of tedious and boring and certainly take away from the excitement of like finding a really cool house. But, if you take an evening, like I said, while you're driving, pretend from the home to work, talk to your partner about, does this work for us? Is this the right thing? How much does it cost to redo a bathroom? When you really sit down and think about it, you don't necessarily have the problems that the impatience causes when you're buying a house. That impatience leads to situations where, in 5 years, you're not unhappy living in the house, but maybe you kind of wonder if there was a better house out there for you. And this last one is an absolute killer. It happens to a lot of people. It happened to me in kind of a reverse situation, but that is overlooking flaws in the house because of its condition, because of its cosmetics, because of the design inside. What I mean is you find a house and it's in your price range, location, let's say, that's all great, but it's gorgeous inside. I mean, it's, they've done all the updating, like the furnace is brand new, the roof's only 3 years old, they've freshly painted everything, they have, craftsman style doors. It's really just a gorgeous, gorgeous house. Unfortunately, sometimes what happens is you move in and you realize that the floor plan absolutely does not work for your lifestyle. Or you find out that, the yard that you thought was a little too small turns out to be way too small. And now you have a bunch of junk behind the garage because you don't have any storage and, there's just no room and you're not happy. One tricky thing is the interior decorating. I mean, you see this all the time with new construction homes. They literally employ professionals to stage and decorate the home. So, they know what the perfect, new season paint color is. They have these, very grand draperies that perfectly highlight this window. Well, guess what? None of that is coming with the house. So you need to make sure that you're not overlooking. Turns out I hate open concept now that I have toddlers, for the fact that that open concept is perfectly brought out with just the right little breakfast nook and, this exact, spread of magazines on a table. That doesn't take away the problem that you hate open concept. With investor homes and flips, this happens quite a lot. So you have a house, that's probably in your price range because it's older and they've gutted the entire inside and now it looks, again, like everything you'd see on Pinterest. The grayish walls and the white trim, and now they have quartz countertop, that's the big thing now, with, slate colored appliances versus the stainless steel that's kind of going out of style. Awesome, great. It doesn't make up for the fact that there's one bathroom. What you really need to do is, even before you look at any houses, sit down and really think about what you want in a house. The stuff that can't be changed. Obviously, location's the big one. We just talked about that. But, things like the size of the rooms, the size of the yard is a big one. How do you use the space you live in now? What are the things you want for your next space? And when you go to look at a house, ignore the wall color, ignore the, perfect little pillows on the bed, and actually think about how your life is going to fit into that space. You can paint walls. Obviously kitchens and bathrooms are, way more expensive, something, to compromise on maybe a little bit less. But most of the things inside a house that really makes it look perfect are really cosmetic things. If you go to a house and you love the way it looks, but it doesn't work for you because guess what? You do want open concept, and this one's older and has a big wall between the kitchen and living room. Just take pictures of the house, and when you buy the house you eventually want, you can go out and get the slate appliances or the, the deep blue couch or whatever it is that are part of these things. Just basically pay attention to how you really live. Do you need a dining room? Do you want an office space? Open concept, closed concept, big yard, small yard, whatever it is. Think about before you go look, what do you really want? Because that house only has to fit one family, and that family is yours. The upshot of all these three things is that it takes time and effort to make a good decision about a home you want to buy. In this case, it's absolutely worthwhile because you're talking about somewhere where you're going to literally live for at least, 5 years or something like that, if not 50 years. It really has to be something that works for you, and it is something that is absolutely worth sitting down with a pen and paper, talking to your partner, talking to your family, whoever's going to live in the house, to make sure that it's right before you go out to look for a house. Thanks for joining me, guys. I hope you appreciated these buyer tips. As always, if you have any questions, any comments, maybe an anecdote like, I thought I could fix up this house and it turns out I'm an idiot, please leave them down below. I'd love to read your comments about this and get your ideas about what are some of the more trickier points about buying a house that most people don't talk about. If you do have any questions you want to ask directly, you can always contact me anytime, 219-765-2062. You can also email me at hsbyerica@gmail.com. I can refer you to people all across the country, so you don't necessarily have to be in my area. Also, check out homesalesbyerica.com. That's a website. There's a buyer's guide on there, but there's also a contact chat that you can contact me directly with any questions you have. If it's your first time here, please like and subscribe to my channel. I do buyer and seller update videos every Thursday and actually do market updates for my area on Tuesdays. So check out my YouTube page for old buyer tip videos and certainly ring that bell if you want notifications for new ones in the future. Thanks again and have a good weekend.